Hey there, fellow wanderers. Tonight, we follow the battered footsteps of a medieval mercenary caught in the uncertain dance between coin and carnage. Picture yourself beneath a leaden sky, trudging through churned-up mud with a sword that's seen more blood than ceremony. The wind howls through your worn-out cloak, and your stomach groans louder than the war drums ahead. Loyalty is a coin toss, and survival is never guaranteed. This isn't glory, this is grit. You probably won't survive this. So, before we dive deeper, I ask only this. If this kind of raw, unvarnished truth speaks to you, click like, hit subscribe, and leave a trace of yourself in the comments. Tell me your city, your time, your state of mind. Now, dim the lights. Let the hum of your fan blend with the wind of centuries past. Let's begin. And remember, in medieval times, even survival was a luxury. As you trudge through the musty halls, thinking back to the labyrinthine paths one had to navigate to enter the priesthood, you can almost hear the resonant chants and hushed prayers that once filled these spaces. Becoming a priest in the medieval era was no easy feat. It required a deep, unwavering commitment, not just to faith, but to a lifestyle that meant embracing both profound spiritual highs and soul-crushing lows. The allure for many was the promise of spiritual fulfillment and knowledge, a beacon in a world often darkened by ignorance and superstition. And yet, the road to this hallowed position wasn't paved with gold. Imagine it. The uncertain steps taken by a young novice, heart brimming with piety and dreams of divine connection. But reality is stark, the process rigorous. You might begin as a mere choir boy or a student at a cathedral school, getting a taste of the church's cadence in lessons of Latin and scripture. The latter, mind you, provided its own unintended amusementa language, so foreign and rarely updated that interpreting it was akin to a modern person reading ancient runes. Yet, for many aspiring priests, these scriptures were the world's very breath. But even as you pore over holy texts, aware that every page could take you closer to divine wisdom, there is no escaping the chill settling in your bones from long hours of study in unheated quarters. Not to mention, the meals are modest at best tardily, a feast for the body, though intended as a feast for the soul. You wonder, with a hint of sarcasm, how many verses it will take to fill the gnawing emptiness in your stomach. Educational hurdles abound, and not merely academic ones. Once you reach priesthood, there's the church's ever-present hierarchy to navigate the path lined with elders and sometimes petty rivalries. The expectation to rise above said skirmishes is ever-present. A priest must be above reproach, after all. Historians still argue whether these inner frictions strengthened the church in solidarity or seeded deeper divides. As you wade deeper into this life, the demands begin to set in. The ceremonies more intricate, the penance more profound. It's a maelstrom of responsibility, doctrine, and expectation, with no real guide other than the intangible hand of tradition. You acknowledge that beyond the personal discipline lies a social aspecta community looking up to you like a beacon in their oppressive and frequently tempestuous lives. It's enough to weigh on one's soul, knowing your role is marked as both shepherd and symbol. And let us not forget the temptations lurking in shadows. For every priest lined by the vows of celibacy, the struggle between fleshly desires and spiritual duties creates an unceasing tension. To be forever marked by a pledge to purity sounds noble when spoken. Yet the whispers of pastoral confessions reveal a river of hidden sin-stails of longing and breaches of vows hidden under the guise of sanctity. You feel the weight of those secrets, cobbled paths snaking like veins to every chamber. Beyond this, there exists the concept of divine purpose. While many might see the cloth as a vehicle for this destiny, every instance of illness, each lonely night, and conflicted thought could veil that clarity, cloaking it in frustration once faith falters. The notion of being chosen by God is a heavy mantle to carry through this medieval mosaic of stone and sorrow. Yet, here you are, walking the dimly lit corridors, the chill deepening as evening descends beyond the monastery walls. You sense the magnitude of faith and the grit it entailed to balance belief with brutal reality, to remain steadfast amidst temptation and turmoil. Survive, you must. Endure, you will. Though the path was fraught with trials, each step brought purpose a reminder that despite the twilight of the era, a priest's path bore the promise of guiding others, however paradoxical and punishing it proved. As these thoughts swirl, you pause, letting the dimness of the quiet stone reflect the duality of this existence. It's a realm of formidable commitment, cloaked by ritual and sanctity, yet beneath it all lies a splintered, human experience, a life lived through earnest faith and relentless duty. You move along, leaving footprints in dust that hold centuries of the sacred and the human blended as one. Such was the allure and burden of a medieval priest's journey. In the cold light of dawn, as the first feeble rays of sun pierce through the high, narrow monastery windows, you find yourself already submerged in the daily grind of devotion. The morning chill clings to the heavy robes draped around your shoulders, and there's no denying the relentless schedule that governs your every move. If you thought your last morning was early, today's obligations beg to differ, reminding you once again that the life of a medieval priest follows a precise, unyielding rhythm. The day begins with matins, the first of several daily canonical hours. These prayers, though serene and enveloping, share a peculiar similarity with that repetitive tune you can never quite shake from your mind. The church bells, harsh in their early proclamation, might as well be a medieval alarm clock yanking you from dreams, whisking you into reality with a rather unceremonious clang. As you move through the choir stalls, the scent of wax and incense rises, encasing you in a somber embrace. The simple act of chanting psalms, while soothing in its repetitions, also demands a deep concentration you can only maintain by focusing on the words alone. It's here that the songs and verses, shared with your fellow priests, weave a fabric of communal devotion. These moments aren't simply your own, their roots binding you to those who came before and those who will follow. Herein lies your solace, as transient as the morning fog. By the time matins give way to lauds, and eventually to prime, terci, and beyond, you're absorbed in a cycle that leaves little room for anything else. The liturgical routine forms a delicate dance that extends well beyond the chapel. The priestly life requires every ounce of your attention, directing the course of each waking hour and assigning your responsibilities as shepherd to the village flocker. Sometimes they assign themselves. It's a job description, absent of weekends or out-of-office PAs, where your only respite lies in the fleeting moments between one prayer and the next. Despite the structured tranquility of these services, the reality of so many prayers can sometimes border on the mundane. Like a medieval playlist stuck on repeat, the familiarity can dull your senses, prompting a humorous thought of requesting a remix from on high. But instead, devotion persists, guiding the hands that turn prayer beads, steady like the monk beside you, whose methodical presence reassures even on the tumultuous days. Outside the chapel, your duties encompass the broader, textured tapestry of parish life. You're entrusted with the spiritual care of your parishioners, tending to their souls much like a gardener tends to their plants, attempting to nurture them with the right balance of wisdom, compassion, and occasional reprimand. Indeed, in an age when ignorance is more common than not, you are a beacon of learning for those who come to you, their trust as heavy as their fears. But beware, relieving their burdens means carrying them upon your own shoulders. Everywhere you go, the fragrance of freshly harvested crops drifts in the air outside the monastery, a stark contrast to the less savory odors lingering within its old walls. It's a bittersweet reminder that life continues beyond these cloistered spaces, with fields and villages thriving or faltering on their own terms. You are not just a priest within these hallowed confines. You're expected to be a mediator, a confidant, and at times a reluctant overseer in the realm of everyday human squabbles. The pressures in these roles can play out like an ecclesiastical variety show, complete with unexpected surprises. Historians still argue whether priests of the time viewed these everyday tensions with overwhelming dread or embraced them as stepping stones toward higher spiritual standing. Perhaps to many, the arduous daily path is more purifying than punitive, a spiritual purgative, be it one with no dosage info provided. For others, it's a test of endurance, a race where the finish line appears tantalizingly out of reach, always just beyond the horizon. As afternoon approaches, So too does Sext, the midday prayer, and with it a rare pause that, though brief, feels like the eye of a storm. It's a chance to reflect on the layers of duty enveloping your everyday existence, to acknowledge both the weight of your commitment and its unspoken rewards. You take a moment to appreciate the warm light pouring through the chapel's coloured glass, letting it infuse your spirit with calm, if only for this fleeting interlude. As evening nears and the day retreats toward the solace of twilight, you stroll along the familiar pathways, the scent of wood smoke rising from chimneys in the village below. It's a cue for Vespers, heralding yet another chapter in this daily book of hours that binds you, unrelenting. Tomorrow, without fail, the pattern begins anew, and though the cycle repeats with familiar regularity, its sanctity endures. As you retreat to your sparse quarters, the monotony blends into a unique, muted rhythm, the grounding comfort in the predictability of such solitude, a place where chaos finds no sway. Closing your eyes, you slip into rest, not respite, exactly, but a quieter peace nonetheless immersed in the simple notion of faith forged through endless, resonant ritual. As night descends and stars begin their silent vigil overhead, you transition to your living quarters, hoping for some relief from the day's relentless rhythm of devotion. However, the very idea of comfort is redefined within the stone walls of a medieval priest's residence. An observer from our era might mistake your quarters for a monastic cellar space devoid of frills, echoing the austere vows taken to embrace this life of faith and simplicity. The room you call home is modest, to say the least. The air within holds the cold with an almost greedy persistence, unyielding to the small fire that flickers in a distant hearth, each ember struggling against the surrounding chill. Blankets, though they bear the scent of lilac from the lavender sachets stored among them, often do little more than take the edge off a winter night's bite. You find yourself inviting sleep, partly to embrace its warmth, partly to escape the rugged reality of this Spartan existence. The bed itself, a humble structure of wood, is predictably hard and unyielding, leaving one wistful for straw-filled mats that, despite their peculiar odour and propensity to harbour small creatures, offer their own strange version of comfort. As your head meets the goose-feather pillow, a rare luxury, you ponder the journeys of trade routes that converge to create such a nighttime respite. Yet, such physical discomfort is only part of the daily experience. Your quarters are a repository for the unending liturgical scripts, scrolls, and a humble collection of books each, a medieval treasure crowded into haphazard piles. They slot between religious texts and scribbled notes of sermons yet to be delivered, resembling a tiny cathedral of paper housing verses more luminous than the candles that illuminate them. Apart from musing over penned lines, you prioritize a period of evening reflection, a moment to dwell on the day's interactions and the sermons delivered, hoping that somewhere within the familiar phrases and well-worn homilies, a parishioner found the solace they yearned for. After all, a priest's responsibility doesn't limit itself to the flock's spiritual well-being. During designated hour-sit is a tether that binds every waking moment. Yet, amidst these walls of utilitarian comfort and worn habit, you discover small joy, sunpacking the earthy tang of herbs drying overhead, or feeling satisfaction in honing a point of theological debate over a shared meal of bread and cheese with a fellow brother. Of course, the cheese is notable for its distinct tendency to pique curiosity or nostrils. You cheerfully acknowledge its peculiar scent as the love child of culinary experimentation and climate. Historians still argue whether the consistently sparse conditions faced by priests played a subtle role in building endurance, or whether they spark introspection, offering the fuel for countless theological musings. Perhaps it was a melange of both, a trial of ascetic fortitude and philosophical inquiry pushed forward by circumstance. Even so, the logistical realities of this life suck, as uneven temperatures and sparse furnishings, often feel like the physical embodiment of monastic vows, a tangible connection to the spiritual journey undertaken within this medieval cloister. The unadorned life is stitched with strings of metaphorical taxan existence, stripped bare of comfort to embrace faith's deeper meanings, minus the trappings of temporal luxury. The spaces outside your quarters emit an unrealized vitality that stands in sharp contrast to life within these walls, a reminder of an external world caught up in the earthly chaos you have vowed to transcend. Hearing the muffled chatter of villagers from courtyards below is your cue of life beyond this monastic enclosure. A gathering at the tavern, a celebration of some local feast whose sounds blend joyfully with the night. Amid the introspection, you also ponder the improbable stories that your predecessors left behind, narratives preserved by oral tradition or captured in brittle ink on time-worn parchment. Footfalls of those who once shared these echoes linger, their shadows stretching alongside yours as you walk through the long, shadowed halls. This is your home now, a microcosm of devotion, where echoes and silence carry equally weighty wisdom. And as sleep begins its gentle caress, you allow these sensations to envelop you with a peculiar kind of peace. It is the quiet acknowledgement of finding comfort not in the physical, but rather in embracing a relentless dedication to causes larger than oneself. The monotonous tick of life's responsibilities dims into the recesses of your mind, and with that, a soft smile stretches across your features, a contentment born not from plush surroundings, but from resilient spirit. In this moment, nestled within the stone embrace of these ancient quarters, you turn inward, allowing your weary mind and worn body the relief of rest. Tomorrow may summon routine's steady cadence to greet you anew, but for now, the luxury of sleep's warm, encompassing shroud is enough. As the first light of dawn threads its way through your narrow window, casting a gentle glow over the aged stone and wooden beams, you find yourself waking to the whispered confessions of your own dreams. In many ways, this small window to your soul reflects the confessional, a space where light filters through a veil, casting soft shadows on the intricate complexities within. It's time to face the realities of another day, entwined with forbidden desires and unheard secrets. The confessional booth, a small dark chamber buzzing with the echoes of whispered truths, stands as a vital edifice in your routine. Here you sit, a silent receptacle for the burdens of others, as your parishioners unload their fears, transgressions, and deepest desires. Every whispered admission hangs in the air like lingering mist, translucent yet tangible. Although shrouded in secrecy, these revelations are your daily bread, as entwined in your routine as the chants of matins. As the curtain shifts to allow another penitent entry, you brace yourself for the weight of their confessions. Each person's story is unique, yet eerily alike, steeped in the human condition. It might be a farmer plagued with guilt over a petty theft, his voice trembling like leaves in a storm, or a young woman confessing desires whispered furtively under the cloak of night. As you listen, you mustn't merely offer absolution. You must guide them back to a path aligned with the tenets of faith. Your own perspective on these admissions is a complex amalgam of empathy, duty, and silent contemplation. Here, in the shadowed confines where darkness and light intermingle, you're often forced to confront the flickering shadows within yourself, the same desires you've vowed to suppress, the same weaknesses you've sworn to overcome. After all, being human transcends the robe's illustrious fabric, and flesh isn't suddenly fortified against temptation simply by virtue of donning ecclesiastical garb. In these moments, it's difficult not to question the strictures imposed by vows. Why, in a world so ripe with human imperfection, is the burden of abstinence heavier than an iron cross? Even now, centuries later, historians still debate whether the vows of celibacy were intended as a means of spiritual refinement or simply a means of maintaining church authority over untempered desires. As forgiving as your faith declares you must be to others, you're no stranger to the whispered doubts and untamed desires that find you in the dark of night. It's altogether too easy for midnight desires to dance like shadows, whispering promises of warmth and release, even as the stone walls and cold alone hold steady in stark denial. Show me a man who hasn't gazed into the eyes of temptation, and I'll show you a saint. But saint or sinner, time moves inexorably forward, and you wade through confessions as the same grainy sands of forgiveness trickle silently through the hourglass. Somehow, balancing compassion with the unwavering dictates of Scripture becomes both an art and a burden, the heavy yoke of shepherding straying souls back to the fold. But there are moments of irony hidden even here. The act of confession itself can sometimes become a dance of loosely tied masquerades, with some parishioners unintentionally bartering for forgiveness through elaborate telesa moment, not unlike a school's late assignment submission, coupled with extraordinarily creative excuses. It is perhaps a tribute to human nature's knack for storytelling, even as one's knuckles brush mercy's door. Still, you're reminded that despite this masked vulnerability, the practice of confession offers profound insight into the soul. With each account shared, a deeper understanding unfolds, both about those who seek guidance and the conflicted nature of humanity. In the space between whisper and absolution, you find raw testament to endurance, the echo of a boundless spirit refusing to capitulate to life's chaos. As you emerge from the confessional booth, leaving behind its solemn confines, a familiar light returns a beacon, leading you back to your otherworldly duties. But not before murmuring a prayer for those who walk the paths of temptation and doubt, hoping the guidance bestowed upon them fosters a brighter tomorrow. Behind your own veil of devotion and duty, can you finally find reassurance in divinely gifted grace too? Embrace the day's remaining hours with renewed insight, each breath a reminder of the fragile balance between strength and fallibility. The same light that filters through your window dances upon the steps leading away from confessional shadows as you step forward with faith a compass, guiding you anew. The sun reaches its zenith, casting warm golden light across the monastery courtyard, crisp with the scent of fresh herbs from the nearby gardens. This is the heart of your day, where spiritual nourishment aligns imperfectly with physical sustenance. You find yourself walking to the refectory, the clatter of modest wooden bowls, and the murmurs of prayer, the day's brief segue from the demanding cycle of devotion. Medieval life carries a bare-bones aesthetic in nearly every facet, a mantra made manifest in your meals. Beneath the grand arches of the dining hall, food becomes both a daily necessity and a spiritual exercise, tapestry weaving sustenance and sacrifice into the simplest of routines. No decadent banquets welcomed in these hallowed halls. Instead, there's the measured portioning of humble bread and brother, sparse culinary landscape meant to frugally sustain your body while allowing the soul to feast on piety. A meal could consist of black bread, baked to such rustic perfection that one might argue it's designed more for discipline than delight. The taste is an earthy embrace, a reminder of the ground's generosity, however limited its bounty. Alongside it, a serving of potagia, straightforward stew simmered for hours holds the heart of communal dining. A conversation shared over mundane soup rather than savory indulgence. The simple fare bears the aromatic note of herbs from the monastery garden, thyme and parsley, likely culprits in this green-lit kingdom. Add the occasional cheese, or perhaps a fish on feast days. Your palate is one that must adapt in tandem with the spirit's commitment to vows, continuing through Lenten-length fasts and periods of asceticism. Whether through sacrifice or sustenance, the balance isn't merely nutritional, but intensely spiritual, and unbroken line to ancient fasting traditions, designed to nurture fortitude against the chaos of worldly excess. Even as your hunger abates with each mouthful, humor arrives in unexpected places. The dedication to dour simplicity doesn't mean your brothers can't crack a smile during mealtimes. Indeed, an observant eye might recognize a twinkling hint of laughter gracing a steward's roughened facian, expression crafted over years spent disseminating cabbage stew and oats, like a benevolent merchant of culinary sparseness. An amusing irony arises during well-intended fasts, which festoon themselves with anecdotes priests caught napping through divine services. Lulled by the pangs of abstinence, pangsand you might find your own memories, chiming in, deferred hunger echoes notwithstanding. Beyond fasting, seasonal turn embellishes your table's fare. Lent and Advent come and go, each infusing your diet with peculiar discipline. Behold a holy arc of measured abstention. An eyebrow might rise at specialty dishes like eels prepared with almond milk, which recur with peculiar frequency. These are received within the context of ritual, as true to fellowship moments enjoyed alongside more mundane edibles. Yet, the food's simplicity masks another layer, its focus on self-denial, reminding you of the wider purpose beyond this earthly sojourn. After all, tendrils of hunger scatter intentions elsewhere, allowing divine musings to unfurl. While some historians puzzle over whether the sustenance of priests was wholly virtuous, or more a result of frugality mingled with practical accessibility, either way, the carefully chalked-up nutrition of your existence lies in a deeper narrative. transcending past the ordinary into meditative grace. Those 7 words, "Man shall not live by bread alone," find an ethereal truth beyond the gravity of even your simplest meal. On days where your stomach protests, longing for something more substantial, you allow your eyes to linger on a bowl of apples gifted by a grateful parishioner, their vibrant hues reminding you of fruitful prosperity outside the ecclesiastical sphere. To partake is not to indulge thoughtlessly, it's to find gratitude rolled into each segment's sweetness. As you retreat from the refectory, fortified in both spirit and stomach, warmed from within by this blend of repetition and reverence, you are reminded of life's inherent rhythms. Faith fuels both heart and hunger, transcending deserts of abstinence, shaping endurance in unremitting choice. Returning through those towering halls, the aroma of lingering hearth smoke mingles with the quiet reverence you carry within the sanctuary of sustenance, balancing a life steeped in spiritual devotion. Indeed, your purpose lies beyond the sum of its parts, bread as significant as benediction. As another day unfolds in the vast expanse of your medieval world, the delicate play of sunlight through stained glass casts a coloured mosaic across the flagstone floor, each hue a reminder of the intricate, yet often rigid hierarchies and the labyrinthine power dynamics within the church. Into these echoing chambers of vaulted ceilings and whispered prayers, you step knowingly, a cog in the grand celestial mechanism that is as breathtaking as it is demanding. The medieval church isn't just a sanctuary of faith, it's an empire of influence, swaying kingdoms and shaping destinies through a network of authority that crisscrosses the known world. As a priest, you find yourself situated somewhere along this spectrum of power vessel, tasked with channeling the church's doctrines whilst navigating its oft precarious politics. Every movement within these hallowed walls unfolds in concert with the unwritten rules akin to a complex game of chess, where each decision calls forth potential ramifications that echo through congregations and councils alike. Key figures such as bishops and cardinals occupy the upper echelons, their commands shaping the ecclesiastical fabric whilst influencing temporal domains. Theirs is a world seemingly removed from the pastoral simplicity of monastic life, dwelling in corridors populated by whispers of clandestine councils and doctrinal edicts. You, as a humble priest, positioned somewhere in between, must deftly balance the weight of divine duty with the articulation of obedience, whether among fellow clergy or when addressing village flocks reliant on your guiding hand. Within this power structure, opportunity for discord arises as naturally as moss creeping over old stone. Personality clashes and political maneuvering persist beneath the sacred canopy. To maintain harmony among squabbling factions requires all the diplomacy one can muster. Take a deep breath as that incense, or just simmering ambition. Reflecting on this hierarchy, an amusing notion emerges amidst the often grave apparatus of rank. Consider the scene of bishops huddling over a candlelit table, debating matters of theology, their vested robes rustling like restless batsan, ecclesiastical committee, fashion showing its way to consensus. But make no mistake, deliberation could swiftly evolve into contestation. Historians still debate the extent to which these internal politics advanced the Church's mission or hindered it through discord. Did power struggles ignite flames of reform, or simply blur the line between sacred intention and personal gain? It's a historical seesaw that swings between divine providence and human folly, with you squarely in the mix, seeking solid footing upon which to plant your convictions. Your duty also involves maintaining balance beyond those cloistered walls, a delicate dance with the local secular lords, who view you as an intermediary between their realm and the Almighty's far more intangible holdings. Each lord you encounter carries their own ambitions and grudges, viewing the Church with a dual lens of reverence and utility, although their reverence occasionally conspires with skepticism, particularly when tithes and taxes enter the conversation. With one foot planted firmly in spiritual obligations and the other in worldly realities, you become a force of mediation, entrusted with easing tensions, while seeking the high ground between earthly ambitions and the angels overhead. Juggling these spheres of influence requires patience, the humility to listen, and the tongue-twisting prowess needed in reconciling murmured prayers with whispered pleas. In the end, this hierarchy entwines you in a dynamic tapestry where your role, as both cog and conductor, shapes the living fabric of the medieval church. As you step progressively beyond the shadowed halls into the sun-dappled precincts, each interaction with the myriad figures of ecclesiastical and temporal power enriches your understanding of faith's role measured by the hearts you shepherd and the spirit of cooperation, or confrontation, it invokes. A gentle breeze, carrying the scent of fresh grass, blends with the imagery of complexities you strive to negotiate, casting slender ripples of hope and challenge across your daily path. The rhythms of this ancient institution may seem unchanging, yet it is here, in this very moment, that you find your ability to shape and serve faith stitched into action, bridging the seen with the unseen. With the morning sun climbing higher, the world outside the monastery hums a gentle Tenuous symphony of birds and distant village life, filtering through open windows. Just as melodies interlace, so too must you endeavor to balance faith's solemnity with the vexing whispers of skepticism and superstition that pervade the medieval landscape. Today, you stand at a crossroad where belief holds the greater power, yet it struggles against the uncomfortable persistence of doubt. The medieval church is, after all, the keeper of sacred knowledge, the anchor in times of existential drift, yet even its walls cannot entirely bar the tides of skepticism that ebb and flow within the human mind. Venturing from the sacred cloisters into the village below, you encounter townsfolk whose lives are as interwoven with faith as they are with their daily manual toil. And yet, their faith does not blind them to skepticism's quiet murmur, a cacophony of questions and unresolved mysteries that echo through realms both spiritual and corporeal. As priest, it's your duty to stand as a bulwark against the tremors caused by unyielding uncertainty. Fields whisper rumors of drought, maladies flit in shadows, and beneath it all, questions arise as to divine accountability. The dichotomy of providence against the whims of fate raises spontaneous doubts among the faithful. Occasionally, skepticism manifests as feigned nonchalance, embodied in the cordial greetings of villagers who unburden their concerns through tentative confessions. The church serves as their refuge, both sacred and practical a place to stow existential concerns among others of a similar ilk. However, nowhere is the skepticism more profound than in the superstitions woven into everyday life. Step over there, and you hear the trembling tale of a wandering spirit. Whispered under the Vespers' hush, tales of witchcraft and ill fortune flit ghost-like, harboured reverently in parallel with the scriptures. The dance between belief and recklessness permeates the fabric of community life, a tapestry sewn from threads both sacred and profane. The local healer, bless her teemingly crowded hut and bottles of Armagnac, holds a rapport with things known and unknown, her curatives as much a source of whispered wonderment as the mischief-making spirits lurking in the half-lit woods. Historians still argue whether these nuanced superstitions served as an illustrative tool for navigating reality. Were they misguided misfires, or did they function as a rudimentary safety net in an unenlightened age? Regardless, they weave a colourful tableau in the courts of belief, where bizarre tales join the quest for understanding. To further illustrate, consider the donkey led to pasture, its plodding gait refusing to quicken once past the standing stones, stubbornly unable to distinguish fable from fact. Much like the subjects of family firesides after twilight tales, the mind of the medieval citizen holds equal sway over earth, and ethereal an equilibrium of metaphor and miracle unmet, even by locksmiths, tasked with removing enchantments from barns and doors. Your role stands as a beacon amid this swirl of half-litanies and hidden pouch amulets, holding them near while gently guiding them back to faith's comforting embrace. Listening to others' doubts echoing the shadows they cast affords insight beyond the teachings of crowded libraries, knowledge both expansive and humbling. Yet, nestled within those shadow-fringed fears lies your own sacrosanct examination and inner dialogue, with belief that tempests in tandem with doubt. Is skepticism a spark for deeper understanding, or is it the thorn in solace's side? At times, finding solace alongside skepticism becomes integral to shepherding others through their own spiritual mazes. Ultimately, navigating these realms requires delicate dexterity, where ceremony dances with pragmatic reason. As the day lengthens and calls upon you to perform rites replete with promise, gaze too upon those rites with a deeper understanding, etched by the peculiar interplay of faith and doubt. Amid the glow of the setting sun, wrapping the village in hues of celestial promise, you step back into the familiar stone encasements of the monastery, their shadows almost cryptic in nature. Where belief bends in its path alongside skepticism's sway, you find a way forward built upon mutual tensionable to sustain your spirit, while shepherding others to steadfast gospels and stories whispered beneath worn tapestries. Here, faith must thrive amidst its own contradiction, woven with unseen threads of mystery and miracle. As the sun begins its descent, casting longer shadows along the monastery's stone walls, the day's familiar rhythm shifts toward a darker cadence soon, where the spectres of health risks and plagues loom ominously over your medieval existence. Within this corporeal realm, where survival itself hinges on the precarious balance of fortune and faith, the threat of illness is ever present, shadowing each moment with uncertainty. In the dim confines of your quarters, the memory of recent years and their merciless plagues hangs heavily. Whispers of contagion, like wayward spirits, drift through village and cloister alike, serving as a grim reminder of mortality. The Black Death, a relentless harbinger that nearly severed the thread of society itself not so long ago, serves as a chilling testament to the relentless march of unseen adversaries. The air, despite its briskness, carries faint traces of the pungent herb sage and rosemary burn to ward off maladies. Yet, such folk remedies, compounded with incense intended as spiritual shield, unveil the terrifying truth. There exists no barrier strong enough to repel health's most fearsome foes. In fact, their potency entwines these days with apprehension. As a priest, you stand at the front lines, armed only with faith and fragile hope, tasked with tending both the living and the uneasily dying. Your role transforms into one of caretaker, beyond the spiritualer, compassionate healer forced to confront despair with every bedside visit. You wander the silent corridors of the infirmary, the sound of labored breathing mingling with muted prayers as you impart comfort to fearful souls, often buoyed solely by whispered promises of eternal grace. Historians still argue whether the fear invoked by such plagues acted as promoter to religious fervor or drove a wedge between humanity and divinity. Yet whether they reaffirmed or strained divine bonds, plagues and pestilence succeeded all too powerfully in shaking the foundations of human faith. Medieval medicine, constrained by the ebb and flow of known doctrine and wild speculation, offers little solace to stricken communities. Though executed with the ingenuity of growing curiosity, medical practices sometimes blur the line between treatment and superstition. The questionable interference of leeches, poultices, and prayers juxtaposed with the practical advice of separating the infirm. Even the language and knowledge meant to protect cursory understanding struggles under disease's withering onslaught, collapsing rather than coalescing. It is a grim irony indeed, that as a living bridge, bridging two worlds, heaven and earth, you find yourself often helpless, ensuring only the spiritual light to soothe those left vulnerable in the midst of physical affliction's darkest storm. Resignedly, you can be sure that others, too, share this waitnan, more so than priests throughout the region, tasked with affording return to those hoping for salvation's promise. Did saints of earlier decay not likewise dine upon threads of nostrums and devotion when ill luck tore apart the stitching? It can be a comparative comfort. Yet, amid the isolation of illness and the breath of life hanging by gossamer filaments, you find inspiration from unlikely corners. There are moments when compassion stands quietly triumphant, offering strength through simple gesturisa. Widow's silent prayers echoed softly by her neighbor, or the sudden blooming of charity's rose amidst calamity's nightshade. Even as you face down these myriad uncertainties, attending each service with a heavier heart, you discover courage in the ancient domino of humanity's indomitable will, sustained by shared trials, murmured blessings, and unwavering resilience. These trials illuminate faith's resolute promise against encroaching darkness, sustaining hope against odds. As the moon rises to cast delicate patterns across the silent countryside, resembling a pale tapestry holding together the threads of one fleeting existence, You seek peace in the cadence of a familiar psalm, whether shadowed by doubt or battered by infirmity's steely grip. This prayer offers solace your shield against the humbling mysteries of suffering and an assurance that, amid the sacred and profane uncertainties of the world, there remains a sacred certainty, illuminating life's chosen way. As dawn breaks once more over the monastery, casting its soft and tentative light onto the stones warmed by countless mornings, your mind turns to the rigors and demands of education that encapsulate much of your priestly life. In the hushed quiet of the library, you find yourself surrounded by the imposing gravitas of leather-bound tomes, each a testament to the collective knowledge of centuries past. Here, under the watchful gaze of illuminated manuscripts, the journey of discernment unfolds a dance to distinguish heresy from doctrine, wisdom from presumption. A medieval priest is much more than a spiritual guide. You're an intellectual sentry standing at the threshold of ignorance, wielding the twin blades of reason and religious study. Each day offers a new challenge, a new text to decipher, or a translation to puzzle over. The rhythmic turning of pages becomes a soundtrack to your thoughts, the whisper of parchment sliding past parchment as familiar as the soft cadence of your prayers. Your education was no small undertaking. It was a laborious path that began in the rudimentary schools of the church and extended into the hallowed halls of cathedral schools, or perhaps even the prestigious university-as timeless institutions where budding minds met the inexorable forces of Latin, arithmetic, rhetoric, and theology. There, amidst the clamour of fellow students and the stern presence of their instructors, you forged the foundations of a life committed to learning. Yet the road is winding, lined with the perils of half-understood texts and the conflicting interpretations of ecclesiastical scholars. Historians still argue whether the scholastic method sharpened theological insight or merely wrapped it in endless layers of debate, leaving truth obscured by rhetoric. Does scholarship temper faith, or can it sometimes lead to vexing tangles of interpretation? Such scholarly debates persist, echoing alongside the liturgical hymns you know by heart. Though the libraries of the present are but shadows of their future selves, with select tomes hand-copied by diligent scribes, you find yourself entranced by the finesse and artistry of the manuscripts. Vibrant illustrations depicting biblical scenes bloom on the edges of pages, drawing the eye with vivid hues that contrast with the somber black ink of medieval script. Each decorative flourish bears witness to the devotion of its creator, a visual symphony harmonious in its blend of artistry and devotion. Your efforts in education extend beyond the personal, weaving seamlessly into your role in the parish. The villagers rely on your steady guidance to unpack and interpret the long, winding narratives of the Bible, rendered in Latin, a language as enigmatic to them as the celestial constellations tracing the night sky. You stand as a translator of divine wisdom, painting the sacred stories in the vernacular of their everyday lives, employing vivid imagery and allegory to bridge the gap between sacred text and human understanding. In the shadows of the church, flickers of candlelight trace labyrinthine patterns over well-trodden paths, suggesting a quest closer to pilgrimage than to scholarly pursuit. With each homily shared, you channel centuries of wisdom, offering insights into the nature of sin and redemption, judgment and grace. Though initially hesitant, you've come to delight in discovering the occasional humorous anecdote that slips into these ornate sermon sentences where oxen exhibit faith through inaction or fields take on personalities, befitting role-playing games. Such moments spark soft laughter and fresh curiosity into the lives of saints and apostles. As a priest, balancing learning and teaching demands resilience. Your understanding must stay nimble, adapting to the evolving tenets of doctrine and informed by the successive councils of the Church that often meet to discuss minutiae discerned in debate-marked margins. It's a constant refinement and ever-flowing river that smoothens the jagged edges of uncertainty, grounding the ethereal in experience and faith. In your heart, you understand the weight of this pursuit, a calling that demands as much rigor as it offers rewards not merely for personal edification, but also as an investment in the souls you minister to. For every knot of doubt untangled, there is a comfort offered, each inquiry leading to revelation a nexus of divine inspiration woven into the fabric of the human heart. As the day draws to a close, and the quiet echoes of the library fade into the anthem of evening prayer, you take a moment to marvel at this journey, a lifelong quest for understanding that, though full of its own fleeting frustrations, holds immeasurable promise beneath its folds. You find solace in the knowledge that each question, every lesson, is bound inextricably to the tapestry of faith, casting light upon the endless horizon of learning that stretches before you. The early morning mist hangs low over the village, weaving a silvery veil that mingles with the rich aroma of dew on ancient stone. As a medieval priest, you venture into this familiar landscape, where your presence bridges the ecclesiastical confines and the village's very heart and identity, intertwined with peacekeeping and spiritual guidance. Today's journey leads you from the haven of the monastery to the bustling life of the village, where the symbiotic relationship between abbey and town finds its rhythm in the gentle lapping of life's ebb and flow. However, this relationship is far from straightforward. The equilibrium between the sacred walls of your sanctuary and the throbbing life of the villagers is often subject to the whims of power and circumstance. Every step along the cobbled path brings you closer to the complexities of town, and abbey conflicts a delicate dance between spiritual duty and secular reality. As you walk into the village square, the morning's market teeming with activity, you are acutely aware of the prevailing tensions that often bubble beneath the surface. Local lords, with their own agendas and interests, gaze upon the church with an eye that is part reverence, part skepticism, dynamic as nuanced as the ever-changing sky. To them, the church is not only a pillar of faith, but also a strategic asset, a repository of influence to be wielded and negotiated as though it were part of the harvest. Your role, both mediator and emissary, unfolds in these spaces where the fragile threads of faith and authority intertwine. Exchanges with village leaders may carry the flush of cooperation or bristle with the undercurrent of discontent, depending on whether the discussion leans toward matters spiritual or fiscal. Tithes, taxes, and tributes are among the currency of these interactions, sometimes placing you in the unenviable position of envoy, tasked with holding the line between spiritual necessity and fiscal obligation. Balancing these priorities requires all your skill as a peacemaker, striving to ease tensions and avoid kindling disputes that could fracture communal harmony. With the deftness of a diplomat and the empathy of a shepherd, you engage the local power brokers not as adversaries but as partners in a shared endeavor. When the festering sting of a boundary dispute raises tempers to a boil, you glide into the role of arbitrator, ensuring that doctrine tempers dogma with understanding. Historians still argue whether such mediations fortified the Church's influence or undermined its spiritual integrity, caught as it was between the competing interests of earthly dominion and heavenly duty. In the harmony of monastic life, there's ample room for irony. Consider the juxtaposition of your humble hold on worldly affairs against the backdrop of the timeless rituals that unfold within the Church. From the candle-lit vespers, softly whispered to the heavens, to the robust negotiations of kind and coin, it's a spectrum of human interaction that finds sanctuary inside an ecclesiastical framework as well as outside it. Within the village, the faces of those who rely on your presence for spiritual guidance and resolute stability emerge from the shadows. The shepherd seeking divine favor for his flock and the merchant praying for prosperous trade color the patchwork of lives looking to you for reassurance. Such encounters carry an intimacy that transcends the temporal challenges of the day, drawing you closer to your calling as a priest and confidant. While you endeavor to anchor your parishioners in the firm ground of faith, the world around you continues its unpredictable spin, inviting both the headaches of the here and the whispers of the what might be. The simplicity of village life is often at odds with the complexity of its politixa conundrum. You navigate as deftly as a mariner adjusts sails to catch the wind. As the sun casts its golden farewell over the rooftops, signaling an end to this day's negotiations, you return to the monastery, the pathings imbued with the whispers of success and frustration alike. The weight of the day's endeavors lightens as shadows lengthen into the sanctity of Vespers, the serenity of prayer offering solace and reckoning for both certainty achieved and doubt restrained. With each village interaction, the lessons of compassion, resilience, and faith deepen your understanding of the inexhaustible tapestry of human existence. You find yourself lifted by the eternal connection shared between the spiritual and the worldly, strange alchemy, weaving the threads of church and commune into the fabric of life, a bond as enduring as the stones that form the foundations of your dueling homes. In the sacred stillness of the chapel, where shadows dance upon cold stone, and the gentle flicker of candlelight casts a warm glow across aged pews, you find yourself contemplating the weight of religious responsibility and guilt, a burden woven into the fabric of your daily existence as a medieval priest. It's a quiet reflection in a space where time seems to stand still, a pause that marks the ebb and flow of faith's demands. The call to priesthood is not merely an invitation to shepherd your flock. It is a profound commitment to embodying spiritual ideals that transcend human imperfection. The role demands an unwavering fidelity to the sacred vows that bind you to both duty and community, an essential pillar of the world you navigate. Yet, despite your steadfast dedication, the relentless weight of these responsibilities can sometimes teeter on the precipice of overwhelming. You ponder the manifold ways guilt manifests itself, lingering like a spectre that shadows your every ritual, from the solemnity of the Mass to the whispered confessions of penitents seeking solace. The guilt is rooted in an ever-present awareness of human frailty, contrasted against the divine ideal, and internal struggle between the teachings of forgiveness and one's own perceived shortcomings. Perhaps it emerges subtly in moments when you replay sermons and wonder if clarity was not achieved, or when confessions lead you to question your own abilities to absolve or impart wisdom contrary to scriptural guidance. Every failure to reach a soul with words of comfort, or contradictions encountered within theological tenets, can feel like a personal failing that echoes long after the church bells have faded into silence. Grinding at this bedrock of dutiful service, the nuanced spectrum of doubt is involuntarily amplified. While you might wear the mantle of spiritual leader with pride, its weight lies heavy, pressed by the knowledge that parishioners look to you not for mere guidance, but for absolution, a conduit of divine redemption. You understand that, even as a mediator, you must bear witness to the complex intersection where personal culpability intertwines with the teachings of faith, a duality that thrums beneath your measured demeanor. Historians still argue whether the pervasive guilt rooted in these spiritual roles served to deepen religious fervor or eroded confidence in the structures of clerical authority. Was it a catalyst for the intense devotion observed throughout the medieval era, or did it foster the seeds of skepticism that would one day challenge established dogma? Regardless, the interplay between guilt and grace is a narrative as old as the Church itself. Among the lessons etched into your experience is the delicate balance you must strike between serving as a vessel of forgiveness and embodying humanity amidst the weight of divine calling. Herein lies an irony. Even as you counsel others against despair, you yourself stumble through the threshold between faith and frailty, traveling the blurred line, separating confidence from introspection. This singular tension is mirrored in the lives of your parishioners, whose confessions tell a tapestry of struggles that echo your own fears, be they masked by humility or laid bare in their authenticity. When we gather in shared prayer, the distance between preacher and parishioner shrinks, the connection tugged closer by the comforting invocation of shared belief, a reminder of our shared quest for meaning and sanctuary. Nevertheless, it's not all somber reflection. There are moments of levity amid this cyclical introspection, found in trading good-natured banter with a fellow priest during liturgical preparations, or sharing a gentle laugh with parishioners as they recount personal anecdotes of potential divine interventions. Such moments shape the counterbalance to the heaviness of your duty, glimpses of humor that bubble up in sacred places with delightful spontaneity. As morning shifts into afternoon, your thoughts linger on how the perpetual dialogue between doubt and solace prepares you for another day of navigating the river of human experience, each bend a new challenge, resolutely embracing the faith you safeguard until nightfall. The responsibilities that bear down upon you recede in their sharpness, illuminated, yes, but no longer daunting. Your ability to channel the trials of faith leaves you not merely a keeper of doctrine, but a bearer of resilience. Embracing this reflection under the watchful eye of centuries' worth of saints, you allow the grace of forgiveness to wash over your mind, lodging resolutely between prayer's open arms. Each lesson learned the steady accretion of understanding gathered like drops of dew upon morning's leafis, a gentle reminder that every action, every moment, is intertwined with the divine perpetual cycle ebbing, flowing, and ultimately balancing the sacred attributes of remorse with joy's return. The sun hangs high in the sky, bathing the monastery in an ethereal glow as you step through its storied halls. It's a place of unrivaled tranquility, yet within its walls, the echo of isolation reverberates, each footstep on the stone floor, a poignant reminder of the familial ties you've willingly relinquished in your commitment to a life of service. In medieval times, the call to the priesthood is a journey that often stretches far beyond the reach of one's own kin, leading instead into the embrace of a new, spiritual family. Your transition from the familiar hearth of home to the austere corridors of this spiritual sanctuary represents a journey as emotional as it is physical. From the moment you chose this path, your identity was intertwined with vows that demanded a severance from familial bonds, a decision both liberating and constraining. For many, it was a way to seek meaning beyond the agrarian or merchant life into which they were born, yet it also marked a consecrated divide, a parting from the very fabric of their early lives. As a priest dedicated to serving the community's spiritual needs, the personal sacrifice of familial separation is often overshadowed by the palpable fulfillment gained through service. Yet, the absence lingers, manifesting itself in the smallest of moments. A song that stirs memories of childhood firesides, or the scent of baking bread reminiscent of festivals shared with loved ones. Such senses act as bridges, tethering you briefly to a past that echoes softly amid the unyielding silence of solitude. Historians still argue whether this trade familial separation for spiritual ascendancy fortified the priesthood with greater resilience against worldly distractions, or disenfranchised clergymen from vital social roots. Was the sacrifice one that enhanced personal growth and devotion, or did it isolate individuals within spiritual walls that offered sanctuary but lacked human warmth? The rigors of your calling and the remoteness from familial connections wield their own kind of humor. Picture yourself confronted daily with a host of parishioners whose children less concerned with solemnity than with the intrigue of catching bugs at noon seem ever curious about the priest's decidedly childless world. Some banter delicately pokes fun at imagined nephews never met, or sisters' husbands never proffered advice. These shared moments lift enough weight from the isolation to elicit light-heartedness amid responsibility's pressing scale. Even within this structure, the familial ties you've severed find new forms in communal living. Fellow priests become surrogate siblings, sharing cloistered life's ebbs and flows. The communal meals, reflective conversations, and collaborative challenges forge bonds akin to family, a unification rooted in a shared quest for spiritual enlightenment. The camaraderie provides solace against isolation's most biting windsor, reminder that kinship emerges even when born not of blood, but of faith shared. To an outsider, this existence might seem overwhelming in its remoteness, yet those who share it understand the quiet rhythms that transform solitude into contemplation and community into a cherished lattice of support. Over time, you discover that love extends beyond its confines, layered through every interaction, small or grand. The absence of traditional familial ties redirects your focus outward, embracing an expansive family formed by parishioners and peers. The mother who seeks your prayers or the farmer who eagerly listens to your sermons become part of this extended web, the village itself, your sprawling kin, echoing the complexity and solace found in relationships nurtured by faith's tender plantings. In a life thus dedicated, the notion of family transforms, encompassing a global sense of belonging while offering room for solace to bloom amid nurturing walls. But make no mistake, this is not a sentimental replacement, but an acknowledgement of personal sacrifice bound to public gratification, where echoes of belonging grow richer by absorbing far-reaching perspectives, from the chapel choir's lilting hymns to villagers' warm wishes. Woven within this new tapestry is a reminder that the very act of relinquishing family for faith underscores a deeper connection, a link to humanity that defines your existence beyond monastery walls, touching lives, sowing seeds of divine grace. and nurturing life's perennial quest for transcendence and completion. It's a profound commitment embarked upon with hopeful abandon, knowing every thread you relinquish, ties you reinvigorate amid faith's embrace. Now, as your eyes meet the containment of stone and scripture, you welcome both solitude and solidarity, finding in each the strength to walk forward with grace, bearing witness to love's abiding testament through vast yet deeply personal corridors of life. As the gentle afternoon light spills through the grand windows of the chapel, casting vibrant hues across the stone floor, you find yourself contemplating the role of art and beauty within the ecclesiastical sphere. The medieval church, with all its austere devotion, is also a bastion of breathtaking artistic patronagia, vivid testament to the importance of divine beauty in a world often dominated by the harsh realities of daily survival. As a priest, one of your unexpected responsibilities is to steward this cultural treasury and manage the artistic pressures that accompany it. Your eyes dance over the intricate stained glass that adorns the chapela riot of color, narrating sacred tales with an eloquence words often fail to capture. Each pane tells a story, vivid enough to bring scriptural history to life for the illiterate and learned alike. It is a canvas of faith, made tangible, a visual hymn that clings to memory long after the music fades. This artistry requires careful conservation, demanding both reverence and resources that are not always readily available within the Church's means. While the temptations of grandeur arise within the halls of ecclesiastical patronage, you find that the artistic accomplishments present their own unique pressures. As keeper of this aesthetic tradition, you're tasked with maintaining the delicate balance of showcasing divine glory without succumbing to excessive challenge that, at times, requires you to navigate the often competing desires of patrons, artists, and worshippers. Your role as a curation steward extends beyond the confines of the chapel to include commissioned works paintings and sculptures that stand poised within the community, each an homage to narratives of faith. These artifacts of devotion require an astute balance, ensconced within spiritual boundaries as you cultivate support for their creation and preservation from patrons who wield influence and coin. There lies the subtle dance with nobles whose sustaining gifts can define both scope and scale, each contribution a mixing of personal legacy with ecclesiastical ambition. Still, the humor isn't lost on you, as even within solemn halls, the artistic process is not immune to its own brand of levity. One imagines scenarios of artists debating whether apostles wore commodious robes in paler shades, or priests critiquing color choices for angels gleaming brightly against a celestial backdrop. Such moments are court jesters, winking at reverence without discourteousness. Historians still argue whether the patronage of the Church enriched faith by concretizing its intangible beauty, or whether it dragged priests into unwelcome politicking over resources. Did it spread the inspirational light of divine stories, or did it allow temporal extravagance to overshadow spiritual messages? Ultimately, the fusion of aesthetics into the fabric of religious life speaks to a grander narrative that entwines creativity with devotion. The art that flows through the veins of your church offers more than just visual splendor. It acts as an educational tool. Through these creations, the witnessed faithful can better comprehend complex biblical themes or the transcendental nature of the divine. It is in these quiet, contemplative moments before a fresco or a sculpture that understanding slips fluidly between the hunting brushstrokes of artistry and the gentle whisper of spiritual teaching. This amalgamation of color, form, and story nourishes the theological imagination even as it demands care and strategic insight. As expressions of faith immortalized in art, these pieces serve as messengers in their own right, spreading the teachings of Christ as effectively as any sermon, reaching hearts stiff in unimposing charm. And you, as the steward of such narratives, anchor your community with gifts bespoke through seeking both heaven's inspiration and earthly interpretations. Nonetheless, as evening approaches and light withdraws its brilliance from stained glass's grasp, leaving gentle verges behind, you recognize a shared tribute in the small victories of preservation of heritage, propagated from generation to generation, stanza by visual stanza. Embracing the quietude of dusk, you slip deeper into reflection, aware that you too, through stewardship, artistic care, and devout patronage play a role in nurturing the divine tapestry, lovingly woven in brilliant threads of light and shadow, testimony and testament, a vigilant guardian of beauty's consecrated trust. As the sun retreats behind the rolling hills, casting long shadows across the monastery's walls, a sense of foreboding takes its place alongside the comfort of twilight. The air seems charged with anticipation, as though the stones themselves hold a breath. Amongst these hallowed halls, the presence of the Inquisition looms, a watchful eye scrutinizing the spiritual integrity and orthodoxy of the Church's stewards. These are times when the pressures of oversight weigh heavily, and questions of loyalty ensnare even the most devoted. The Inquisition, that vigilant mechanism of faith, is both a guardian and a spectre within the ecclesiastical structure. It seeks to purify the Church, safeguarding doctrine through rigorous examination and, at times, merciless censure. In this climate of rigorous surveillance, your role as a priest becomes fraught with a tension that threads through even the simplest acts of devotion. Every sermon, every sacrament, is delivered with the silent awareness of eyes unseen, ears ever opener, subtle intrusion into the intimate bond between shepherd and flock. To stray from established doctrine, even unwittingly, invites scrutiny as intense as it is swift, the kind of attention no clergy would willingly draw upon themselves. Your every word, every choice, becomes an exercise in balance, walking the line between authentic expression of faith and adherence to the rigid structures of theological orthodoxy. It's a delicate dance that's accompanied by both fear and resignation, for the stakes are nothing short of one's very livelihood and spiritual stature. You navigate this tightrope with a mixture of commitment and caution, understanding that every doctrinal decision made is shadowed by the possibility of reprimand, a shadow that can stretch all the way to the heart of Rome itself. Amidst this scrutiny, a relentless whisper of irony may seep into your reflections, that an institution founded upon principles of love and tolerance should require such an apparatus as the Inquisition to maintain its integrity. Such contradiction finds its way into cloistered jokes, exchanged with wry smiles in sacristies, quiet laughter cutting through the tension like a balm-each jest, a small defiance of stress. Historians still argue whether the Inquisition was a necessary instrument for maintaining unity within the Church, or an overzealous body that stifled theological diversity. Was it a mirror reflecting the Church's commitment to orthodoxy, or did it simply cast shadows that obscured the light of faith? Regardless, it functions as a potent symbol of the era's spiritual intensity and the relentless pursuit of purity. Caught within this intricate web, you lend your prayers an added fervent touch, seeking wisdom and courage to navigate the evolving ecclesiastical terrain. Each interaction with fellow clergy becomes a careful interplay of reassurance and restraint, of shared uncertainties and silent solidarity, a nod to the continuous dialogue between faith and fear. The faithful, gathering within your Church's embrace, remain largely unaware of this silent struggle. For them, your presence stands as a beacon of constancy amidst an ever-changing world, even as you face internal turmoil. Your pastoral duties continue, lending solace and guidance to those looking up to you with trust and hope. Despite these external pressures, the essence of your calling clings steadfastly to you. The core belief that each soul carries an intrinsic yearning for connection and understanding propels you forward, guiding you through the labyrinthine challenges of ecclesiastical life. These moments of doubt and oversight fuse with the steady beating heart of faith, harmonizing a dissonance into devotion's rich and multifaceted tenor. As dawn inches forward to touch the confines of your window with the promise of resilience found in the light, you prepare to face the unfolding day with renewed determination. Your vision remains clear, a commitment to nurture your parochial flock while standing firm within the theological canon. This delicate tapestry of devotion and scrutiny is one you curate, a pattern upon life's loom where unwavering spirit perseveres despite imposed vigilance. In these quiet pockets of resolve, you embody the timeless act of dedication, known resounding with steadfast grace across the Egesa, testament to the enduring spirit of the clergy that thrives beyond the long shadows cast by history's spectres. As the dawn's first light spills softly into your modest quarters, filtering through frosted panes to warm the stone floor, the day's challenges unfold like a worn scroll before you. Among these familiar struggles lies the continuous dance with financial constraints, a balancing act that faces every medieval priest striving to sustain a community through scarcity. The life of simplicity which you've embraced might be sacrosanct, yet managing the Church's fiscal well-being requires a harmony-balancing necessity against the pressing weight of material resources. While the monastic life allots little for personal indulgence, it demands that you keep a keen eye on the parish's coffers, where each coin may dictate the survival of more than just the chapel's tranquility. It determines the well-being of an entire community that looks to you for guidance. Medieval church finances are an intricate web of tithes, donations, and alms, woven into social contracts binding stations together. Farmers bring forth a portion of their harvest as an offering, while villagers tithe a fraction of their earnings in return for spiritual nourishment amidst life's tumult. Yet, even as offerings pile at the altar, you remain acutely aware that every coin dropped into the collection box is ephemerala, metaphorical grain in the ongoing hourglass, maintaining the carefully balanced ecclesiastical world. Budgeting for church maintenance requires an eye akin to a merchant's, where discretion and providence dance their careful steps. Providing for the candlesticks alight at evening vespers, or ensuring the vestments worn for communion bear neither dust from disuse nor excesses calling attention to lavishness. These pragmatics are tainted by moments often less solemn. Who among you does not chuckle over impromptu conversations about whether a certain bishop's crozier resembled more an impertinent garden rake than a realm-affirming staff? Yet, humour aside, the truth remains inescapable. Grappling with financial constraints means balancing acts worthy of a tightrope walker. The parish's needs are multifaceted, entailing repairs to aging buildings, funds for charitable outreach to the needy and infirm, and contributions to the greater church hierarchy. Managing such demands requires careful navigation between fiscal responsibility and the spirited impulse to distribute freely according to one's sacred trust. Historians still argue whether the Church's wealth strengthened the spiritual backbone of communities or whether it invited scrutiny and discord, sowing seeds of skepticism as much as faith. Was each pound or franc that slipped from monastic fingers an investment in divine will or a misspent guardian of worldly vanities? Either stands as a testament to the chessboard priests often navigated. In your service to the parish, creativity takes the helm as the compass charting this uncertain fiscal landscape. The art of inspiring communal participation means cultivating not only fulfillment amid prayers, but also fostering community activities that unite through shared vision at the market, unrepentant laughter, engaging over simple raffles or mock tournaments by those who dream of knightly pursuits. Beyond parish boundaries, relationships with nobility are as crucial as the gilding upon an altar, requiring diplomacy to secure patronage for sacred projects all, while steering clear of overindulgence and earthly temptation. Moments spent persuading a noble for aid resemble less a plea and more an orchestrated negotiation, navigating desires wrought from kingly ambition. Yet at the end of the day, despite the complexities financial constraints impose, the rewards of your devotion outshine such temporal concerns. For as the sun dips gently below the horizon, a tapestry of colours streaming through faithful stained glass, you reflect upon a truth that guides your path, that faith remains the currency of the Church, worth infinitely more than coin. Every investment in heart and soul surpasses the mere mundane, a flourishing at the wellspring of life, where shared spirit unites beyond the clinking call of lucre. As the night cloaks your world in a tranquil promise, you lay upon the bed of faith woven by centuries a blanket, encompassing perseverance, trust, and grace, knowing that though burdened with material weight, the ethereal rises far beyond, cradling your spirit initialized by the simple touch of dawn's light upon your monastery chamber. With the morrow's eventual rise, lean gently, knowing each sunrise renews the struggle of balance, whispering hope amid echoing rafters. As morning unrolls its rosy hues across the open fields and the waking village, you stand at the threshold of a new day, your roles and responsibilities intersecting in the domain of public scrutiny and societal expectations. Being a medieval priest means living under the watchful eyes of your community, where every decision is weighed with unparalleled care and every action observed through the lens of collective judgment. Walking through the village, the cobblestones beneath your feet echo stories of generations past, as well as the murmuring cadence of those who come seeking counsel or simply passing by with a knowing nod. Your presence in the village is both a beacon and a barometer, reflecting the community's spiritual temperature as much as its social harmony. Thus, navigating this complex web of public scrutiny isn't merely about facing external criticism. It's a journey that involves an intricate dance of perception and reality. You are an emblem of moral fortitude, a pillar of virtue, so the expectation goes. Every word you utter in sermon or casual conversation carries with it the weight of expectation, each one as potent as the sacramental wine sipped at Christ's table. The jokes you exchange with the villagers cannot be too irreverent. The advice you offer must be both gentle and firm. You are expected to embody not just ideals, but the very hopes of those finding solace within the sacred walls of your church. It's a responsibility that demands an unyielding adherence to integrity, an unspoken pact of authenticity with your parishioners. They look up to you as a mirror, reflecting both divine grace and earthly reality, each smile or consoling gesture imbued with the trust of one who guides souls through the trials of life. In the realm of public scrutiny, humor isn't just a release, but a powerful tool that humanizes the sanctimonious facade. Imagine moments in the village square, when you gently diffuse tension among neighbors, locked in farmland disputes, not with a stern rebuke, but a well-timed quip that renders their quarrel as absurd as arguing over the rightful ownership of clouds. Yet, beneath this veneer of light-heartedness lies an acute awareness of the flaws that sometimes surface from beneath clerical robes, veritable skeletons of temptations and errors that, if glimpsed, cast long shadows across the halo of respectability. The sins that should not exist within a cleric conjure tales of missteps whispered amongst villagers, serving as cautionary tales that remind you of the delicate line upon which the clergy must tread. Historians still argue whether this public observance fortified the church's integrity, propelling clergy toward greater accountability, or whether it sharpened the wedge of disillusionment that could cleave spiritual bonds. Was the community's rigorous gaze a steadying force, or did it isolate the priest by placing him upon an unsustainable pedestal? As you continue through your day, the constant evaluation can at times feel burdensome, yet essential, the catalyst through which your own values are refined, holding you accountable to the ideals you pledge to uphold. The scrutiny ensures that introspection remains active, facing the reflection in both moments of solitude and communion. The spectrum of villagers' expectations also includes being a pivot of local stability during times of discord, balancing community needs with impartial guidance. When disputes arise, your role shifts into that of arbiter, moderating between emotional tempests and advocating for reconciliation that keeps within both legal bounds and spiritual aspirations. All these diverse expectations draw from a shared desire for belonging, a quest for harmony in which each person plays a vital note in life's eternal symphony. In fulfilling them, you nurture relationships built on trust, understanding, and shared joy, encouraging a collective discourse that spans every sermon, every shared meal, and every parting benediction. In the tranquil play of twilight, when the sun dips again behind the houses and the villagers gather for evening prayers, you reflect on this constant engagement with public scrutinia, dance blending humility with conviction. Each whisper, each prayer, etches another line into the ongoing narrative of your life in service, a tapestry being woven anew each day with resilience and grace. As you return to the soothing embrace of the stone and silence of the church, let each woven moment of expectation bear testament to the strength of spirit, guiding you through the labyrinthine paths of ecclesiastical life, a beacon of light and laughter, anchored by unwavering faith amidst public gazes. As the morning sun casts its warm glow over the village, the delicate interplay of shadows and light highlights the timeless architecture of cottages and church alike, reminding you that each day in the life of a medieval priest is a complex tapestry of intertwined roles. One of these roles is, as counselor and mediator, a dual responsibility that requires navigating the delicate intricacies of human conflict, a task that demands equal parts wisdom and empathy. The village, small and close-knit though it may be, rarely exists without its share of disputes and disagreements. Whether it is a matter of property boundaries, a lingering grievance over farmland rights, or family tensions heightened by the day-to-day struggles of medieval life, you are called upon to mediate peace between opposing sides. Your position demands you to remain impartial, knowing that every decision might kindle new contentions or, ideally, restore harmony. The art of mediation goes beyond simply listening. It demands an acute awareness of the subtleties woven within each human story, the unspoken grievances, the yearning for validation, and the unflagging hope for fairness. When villagers approach you with their concerns, they do so with an expectation of discernment and justice, trusting that the wisdom of your office will guide them toward resolution. Picture yourself standing beneath the boughs of an ancient elm, its branches framing the discussions that unfold as community members gather to air their grievances. The task is as challenging as it is rewarding, a chance to walk with care on the tightrope of impartiality as you guide both parties toward common ground, channeling their voices into a dialogue that aims to rebuild bridges where they have been burned. In these moments, humor becomes a valuable tool, a gentle release that draws away tension, replacing it with the kind of laughter that softens hard lines and turns angry glares into reluctant smiles. A well-timed jest can deflate a neighborly feud quicker than the threat of church censure, transforming contention into shared understanding. Picture the farmer, once red with anger about a vagrant chicken, now chuckling as he imagines marauding hens laying siege to fields amid modest smiles. Through these interactions, you find ways to affirm each party's worth, respecting the humanity that resides within the conflict while striving to maintain your role as an avenue of divine guidance. The responsibility you bear as a mediator becomes both a privilege and a challenge, a testament to your ability to draw from the wellspring of patience and insight, accounting for the larger canvas of your community's needs. Historians still argue whether such roles within church life anchored villages in communal dependence or encouraged an over-reliance on clergy to settle scores, placing an undue burden on the priest. Did mediating disputes render clergy as crucial linchpins for societal harmony, or did it risk making them pawns in temporal quarrels? The answer lies in the balance you maintain between being part of the community and remaining a step removed. Even as your peacemaking efforts unfold beneath softly rustling leaves, you understand they are strengthened by both personal integrity and the spiritual tenets of mercy and reconciliation you uphold as sacred. Your mediation role extends beyond dealing with immediate disputes. It encompasses the broader duty of fostering an environment where understanding and grace prevail. By encouraging open communication and promoting the art of forgiveness, you inspire a culture of mutual respect that seeds itself within everyday interactions. As the day draws toward its close, and the villagers return to their homes, having left contentions behind, you walk back toward the chapel with a heart lighter for the peaceful resolutions achieved. The bells toll gently, a hymn of gratitude echoing within the shadows of evening, reminder that while human conflicts are an inescapable part of life, so too is the capacity for compassion and understanding. Within the sanctuary of your chambers, you reflect on the day's subtle victories, finding solace in the knowledge that through each conversation, each reconciliatory gesture, you play a part in weaving a stronger community fabric. In these meditative hours, your spirit is renewed, ready to face once more the varied rhythms of monastic life unfolding by candlelight tonight, with walls echoing soft melodies steeped in hope and harmony. With dawn stretching lazily across the land, painting the village in a gentle golden hue, you rise to face another day, filled with the ever-evolving demands of your diverse parish. The life of a medieval priest is a delicate balancing act, where the desires and needs of your congregation morph and shift with the passage of time, like the gently swaying branches of the ancient trees that stand watchful around your church. Your parish is a kaleidoscope of individuals, each bringing distinctive stories, aspirations, and challenges to the altar. From seasoned elders whose years have woven wisdom into their words, to fresh-faced youth whose hunger for understanding reflects back at you in eager eyes. The spectrum of needs is as varied as the fields surrounding the village. The vibrant tapestry of humanity requires all your skills as a listener and guide, with each thread demanding its own response, every scene its own narrative arc. Today, your attentions are pulled in multiple directions, a patchwork of visits that take you from village homes to barnyard gatherings. Perhaps you start with the shepherds, whose early morning rituals are as etched into the landscape as their woven tales of lost sheep and found grace. With staff in hand and humor on their lips, they welcome your insights on matters divine and mundane. The exchange brings a warmth to the chill morning air, the laughter held between you as comforting as the bark of a familiar dog that saunters by. Then there are the craftsmen and merchants, their workshops vibrant with the noise of industry and the occasional thrum of a well-enunciated barter. Here, guidance takes the form of blessing tools and the fair measure of scales, both acts of faith mingled with practicality. Discussions turn to prosperity and fair dealings, the success of the market intertwined with the integrity of the community. Your presence among them is an assurance that prosperity is not purely material, but spiritual as well. As the sun climbs, you might find yourself invited to the hearthside of a family, their modest home echoing with the laughter of children and the scent of earthy stew, a combined embrace that warms even the coldest of days. This hospitality is both humbling and enlightening. It opens your eyes to the simple yet profound joys that define their lives. In these familial interactions, you uncover lifelines intertwined with faith, moments that champion love above doctrine. Then comes the inevitable tending to those less fortunate, whose needs you meet not with pity but with solidarity. At the heart of your mission lies compassion for the impoverished and the infirm, their tenacious spirits igniting the drive that upholds your own calling. In their perseverance, you find stories that speak not of burden, but of unwavering hope. The sheer diversity of your parish's needs extends further into ceremonial undertakings, baptisms that herald new beginnings, the solemn whisper of last rites, weddings woven with vows that knot two lives into one, and funerals that bid farewell with a promise of heavenly reunion. Every occasion encapsulates the breadth of life's journey and anchors the community firmly within a shared experience. Historians still argue whether this range of pastoral duties served to solidify the Church's central role in community life, providing consistency amidst ever-changing societal currents, or whether it masked underlying tensions that brewed just below the surface. Was your hand at the helm a balm to societal wounds, or simply a maintenance of the status quo? Regardless, your role as pastor is an unending dialogue with humanity, evolving as you carry their triumphs and trials upon your shoulders. This constant state of flux becomes your primary source of inspiration. Every conversation leaves echoing impacts, reminding you that life, in both its shared certainties and unique individualities, creates the vibrant spiritual community. As the day winds on and the sky deepens into twilight purple, you return to the church, worn yet uplifted by the lives you've encountered. The familiarity of the chapel enfolds you like a comforting embrace, the flickered glow of candles casting gentle arcs across the sanctuary walls. With the day's demands momentarily at rest, you draw strength from the understanding that each encounter fortifies not just your parish, but your own resolve. You listen for the night's quiet hymn, of gratitude a harmony, formed from the blessed ties of today's woven tapestry, drawn from the shared spirit of progress, compassion, and diverse demands of a priest's life. Within this unified flow, you gaze forward with anticipation to the varied notes that tomorrow's symphony shall deliver. As dawn unfolds yet again into another day, its light, delicate, and burgeoning, you find yourself immersed in the weighty role of addressing moral dilemmas that confront both you and your parish. This is a principal aspect of your calling as a medieval priest, navigating the thorny paths of ethics and virtue, offering guidance amidst the tangled brambles of sin and redemption. Life in the medieval world is a constant interplay between virtue and temptation. Your parishioners seek counsel on a myriad of transgressions, some earnest in their contrition, others less so, wrapped in excuses as thin as quicksilver. As their spiritual guide, you're tasked with wading through confessions of lapsed morality and misdirected intentions, striving to help them realign their lives with the tenets of faith and doctrine. Today, a particular moral quandary surfaces you're all too familiar with, the matter of indulgences. The practice itself is a source of contention, both a lifeline for a penitential soul and a subject of theological debate. The most remarkably comic examples arise during interactions with your congregation. Imagine the baker earnestly offering to trade 24 sweet rolls for an expungement of questionable choirboy pranks. The lines between sincerity and the ecclesiastical economics can sometimes blur alarmingly within parish walls. Indulgences, those spiritual passages away from purgatorial woes, present their own unique dilemma. Are they truly absolution for the soul, or mere transactions akin to shifting debt in the ledgers of heaven? You find yourself pondering whether they detract from the need for true repentance, or if they function as spiritual catalysts, sparking deeper introspection among believers. Historians still argue whether the practice bolstered the Church's coffers at the expense of genuine faith, or whether it provided a necessary avenue for ecclesiastical charity and piety. Beyond indulgences, the confessions you hear reveal a microcosm of medieval society's moral landscape, confessions of sins that range from the 7 deadliest to newly invented expanding the scholarly discussions of what constitutes transgression and why certain misdeeds arouse guilt. Your guidance often necessitates finding the balance between personal culpability and doctrinal adherence, maintaining the delicate boundary that impedes forgiveness from veering into indulgence. The task of guiding the penitent calls upon your capacity for empathy and discernment, for not all sins are created equal, and neither are the souls who bear them. Some require the gentlest touch, leading hearts inward as you weave allegories of grace and regained innocence. Others demand a sterner hand, a reminder of fiery judgment that history might recall with just enough trepidation to guide them back onto paths of righteousness. Yet, these moral navigations can't escape occasional humor even among the solemn shadows. Fancy the labourer confessing his envy of his brother's cart and asking if borrowing the axles might be considered too overt a sin. Such exchanges, although illuminating human creativity in the face of accountability, ground you within the reality of the accessible church role, encompassing challenges from both absurd and profound existential planes. You are acutely conscious that this facet of your ministry transcends the mere absolution of sins. It is about teaching, shaping, and inspiring transformationer, whose divine task requiring the bestowment of hope for every soul that stumbles wearily into the confessional. As the congregation departs, carrying your words with them like unseen talismans, you reflect on the commitment that runs as a silent undercurrent through each tableau of sin and remorse. Yours is a realm where shadows and light intertwine gracefully, creating endless variations of humanity reaching for forgiveness. Upon returning to the monastery's quiet refuge, you embrace the echo of resolved voices whose burdens now lie lighter. The flame of understanding within your heart flickers brightly, invigorated by the knowledge that your counsel ignites the spiritual candles, illuminating the path toward redemption. Amid the gentle hum of the evening choir, the shadows of moral dilemmas cast earlier merge into softer hues, underscoring the complexitia spectrum, borne by each nightfall into the sacred dance of enlightenment and grace. The journey weaves the everyday with the ethereal anew, guiding your steps confidently on life's hallowed, timeless sojourn, unyielding to doubt and despair. As the morning light seeps into the chapel, casting a tapestry of colours across the stone walls, you prepare for another day of meeting the demands wrought by evolving liturgical practices and challenges. The medieval church, although grounded in tradition, is not immune to the slow tide of change that seeks to reshape rituals, languages, and the rhythm of sacred ceremonies. The task of maintaining the sacred rites while adapting to new liturgical evolutions can feel like walking a precarious tightrope. You are a custodian of tradition and heritage, charged with the profound responsibility of ensuring that the ancient words and rituals remain vibrant and meaningful, even as they undergo gradual transformation. It's a delicate dance, ensuring the continued relevance of these rituals without forsaking their deep-seated roots. In particular, the sweeping changes in liturgical language can present a unique challenge. The transition from Latin to vernacular languages, although slow and fraught with resistance, sparks a heated discourse about accessibility versus purity. As a priest, you must navigate these tempestuous waters, choosing how best to communicate divine truths to a congregation that may no longer fully grasp the learned tongue of tradition. The sentiment is mirrored in attempts at translating Holy Scripture without losing its sacred resonancia, demanding work where words carry the nuance of an entire cosmos. Witness the gentle humor amid such debates. Envision a parishioner gently suggesting that his wife's pie deserves divine recognition in any tongue. Such exchanges anchor the process with the earthy practicality and warmth of human nature, highlighting the intrinsic humanity within these lofty discussions of angels and archangels. Historians still argue whether these changes in liturgical language and practice diverted focus from sacred doctrine toward more temporal matters, or whether they ultimately enriched the spiritual landscape, bringing the divine ever closer to the hearts of believers. One of the enduring debates involves whether this pivot opened pathways to greater inclusivity, or inadvertently sowed seeds of division and dissent. In the heart of the chapel, each ceremonial gesture takes on renewed significance. The softly spoken words of the liturgy, whether in the thrumming cadence of Latin or in the intuitive flow of the local dialect, rise to meet the vaulted ceiling, weaving their way into the souls of those gathered in worship. The rites unfold, each movement a solemn promise to past and future alike here, relentless whisper of continuity cascading through generations. The process of adaptation doesn't reside solely in adjusting language. It extends into the integration of new hymns, musical accompaniments, visual artistry, and the embrace of burgeoning theological insights. The introduction of fresh allegories into sermons helps bridge evolving doctrine with the rich mosaic of daily life that your parishioners inhabit. These stories transcend the mundane to weave spiritual meaning into everyday occurrences. As an intermediary between tradition and innovation, you carry the mantle of guiding your flock through these changes, ensuring they remain rooted in the enduring truths of faith. You meet the congregational needs by strategically balancing the new with the established, creating a pathway where hearts and minds converge in harmonious resonance. Behind closed doors, you meet with fellow priests and lay leaders, discussing, debating, and exploring new interpretations of the sacred rites. Each conversation is a dance of respect and progression, a quest to honor the divine intention while striving to remain attuned to the needs of the present. As dusk descends upon the village, inviting twilight's cool embrace, you reflect on the day's liturgical journey. The familiar chants of evening prayers echo softly in the chapel, hallowing the air with sacred reverberations that have persisted through ages. You find yourself standing at the threshold of change, an unwavering testament to faith's resilience amid evolution's gentle insistence. In these moments, you are reminded that the path of faith is inherently dynamic, living entity that flows through time, nurturing both the ancient and the emergent with equal reverence. It is the product of countless footsteps trodden upon the sacred journey, finding their way to intersections where divine constancy and human curiosity meet. Embracing the interplay of tradition and transformation, your role remains steadfast to ensure that each step taken in faith is filled with the promise of enlightenment, continuum of worship, cradled amidst life's sacred landscape, where the heartbeat of eternity resonates intimately within the cadence of prayer. Through the hallowed halls of learning, it is a living legacy, woven from the very essence of your priestly vocation, driven by the conviction that knowledge, carefully stewarded, can serve as a force both for personal growth and communal cohesion. The flame of education, you realize, is both a guiding light and a sacred trust, illuminating the path forward as it harmonizes with the unyielding beats of steadfast faith. In this commingling of faith and reason differentiated, yet entwined, you embrace the knowledge that lights the darkness of ignorance, ensuring the youth's places confidence rooted will faithfully steward the spiritual and moral compass of the generations that shall follow. And as the nightfall cradles the village in its gentle stillness, you reflect on today's symphony of learners' chorus, grateful for the opportunity to nurture such reverberating echoes into the dawn of understanding. With the new dawn, a sense of purpose invigorates your every step as you traverse the path leading from the monastery to the village schoolhouse. Today, as always, highlights your commitment to a crucial and often overlooked aspect of your priestly duties, the role of educator, amidst a quest to balance dissemination of knowledge with safeguarding the tenets of the Church. Here, in this modest setting, you become a custodian of both wisdom and tradition, shaping minds while vigilantly navigating the fine line between enlightenment and heresy. The medieval period is a time when understanding and ignorance dwell uncomfortably close, their borders often blurred by the limitations of existing knowledge. As a priest, you occupy the paradoxical space of being a disseminator of truth, while filtering content through the prism of doctrinal acceptance. The pursuit of education holds the promise of growth, but must tread carefully within the boundaries drawn by theological orthodoxy. In the hushed atmosphere of the village schoolroom, where tables bear the etchings of countless fledgling scholars, you impart lessons rich in Latin, arithmetic, music, and scripture. Latin opens up the vast reservoirs of written wisdom. Arithmetic guides the rhythms of trade and construction. Music lifts the soul toward the divine. And scripture grounds all knowledge in moral and spiritual guidance. Each lesson is a seed planted, its potential endless, yet its journey tempered by the fertile soil of tradition. The challenge, however, lies not merely in imparting rote knowledge, but in encouraging critical thinking that stays appraised within the immutable truths of faith. These interactions invite a dynamic exchange of ideas, dialogue, through which questions are navigated with both curiosity and caution. There arises a moment of levity. Student mishaps during recitation, muddled Latin conjugations morphing into enthusiasm, inspiring lightness. Amo, amas, amo, these are words to remember. Such moments, while humorously entertaining, become avenues for deeper engagement with the material at hand and reveal layers of understanding beneath youthful blunders. Historians still argue whether the dichotomy of monastic education represented a beacon of intellectual development or stifled broader philosophical advancement. Was it a catalyst for reform or a chain tethering thought to obedience? The balance you attempt to strike reflects these ongoing questions, shaping an environment where learning flourishes within the solutions offered to both enigmas and everyday complexities. Balancing new learning with caution isn't confined to the classroom. Your commitment extends into the community, where lessons may take unconventional forms. In the open-air forums beneath a canopy of ancient trees, knowledge shares space with stories and virtues each tale, a parable interwoven with both spiritual and practical teachings. Your role as an educator also includes safeguarding against heretical influences, distant philosophies that filter into the village, carried by travelers or in secret writings. All must be scrutinized and assessed before being shared, a process grounded in careful discernment amidst the constant interplay of knowledge and faith. This scrutinizing ear ensures that wisdom derived from new sources enhances rather than undermines the doctrinal fabric held sacred within your community. When the autumn sun dips lower in the sky, casting shadows across the schoolroom, the exuberant voices of your students accompany you as they disperse to homes nourished by these lessons. You stand witness to their growth, aware of the transformative power of education, as it prepares them for the ever-unfolding tapestry of life, a rich fabric, strengthened by both tradition and inquiry. Returning to the sanctity of the monastery's embrace, the echoes of curious questions are enshrined within your heart, a testament to the eternal dance of enlightenment and orthodoxy that sweeps. As the new day begins, a quiet resolve accompanies your every step across the monastery grounds. Today, your thoughts turn to the tenuous and often complex connections with Romeith, heart of the Church, a distant yet ever-present entity that wields an influence over your ecclesiastical duties from afar. This relationship, fraught with both admiration and challenge, acts as an unseen hand guiding the ship of faith through the turbulent seas of medieval life. The spiritual bond with Rome extends beyond mere authority. It encompasses the Church's sacred lineage and theological foundations. As one of countless priests upholding the traditions and doctrine of the Church, you feel an unbroken line stretching back through time to the apostles themselves, a lineage that runs directly to the papal seat in Rome. This connection imbues your duties with a sense of holiness, lending gravity and sanctity to even the smallest of acts performed in the Church's name. Yet this connection is not without its difficulties. The directives and decisions emanating from Rome often reach you filtered through layers of interpretation and circumstance. It becomes a delicate dance, balancing Rome's authoritative edicts with the lived realities of your local parish. The challenges of communication in this era mean that messages may arrive weeks or months after pivotal decisions, mandating actions that clash with present conditions or demand resources that are scarce. How quaint it is, you muse, when finally receiving parchment crafted in Rome, only to see edits scribbled by scribes hand-illuminated by candles dance-bearing faint traces of ink-smeared fingerprints. Beneath its surface lay intriguing fragments of humanity, cloaked in solemnity, but never without traces of everyday existence. Historians still argue whether the centralization of church authority around Rome fortified ecclesiastical unity and purpose, or whether it fostered alienation and discontent within local parishes whose needs were as diverse as the landscapes they inhabited. Is the Holy See a beacon of divine unity, or does its distance create a chasm that leaves unchecked the unique vibrancy that characterizes local expressions of faith? In practical terms, these complexities unfold in your role as a shepherd in both spirit and action. Adapting Rome's guidance into forms suitable for your parishioners requires a particular blend of diplomacy that remains respectful of the Church's doctrinal expectations while ensuring that the community's culturally contextual needs are addressed, whether it's interpreting papal bull or adapting broader church reforms to village life. The relationship, while distant at times, inhabits moments of reverence, coalesced with challenges when adhered, prompting a latent kinship not entirely encumbered by distance. The faithful, feeling both Rome's spirit and proximity through your dedicated pastoral action, grants you the strength to delve beyond edicts and into the warm nebulae of faith unspoken. Meanwhile, communications that flow from you to Rome in return are rich and infused with the tapestry of your parish life, a conversation about the triumphs and struggles of the medieval terrain, penned with sincerity and hope. Your missives reflect a commitment to honor this line of connection, reinforcing a vision that appreciates both unity and individuality as core tenets of divine worship. The swelling overture of evening prayer rings through the stone walls as twilight signals the time for reflection. In your meditations, you embrace both the authority born from Rome's connection and the responsibility to weave its deep-seated guidance into the daily reverberations of parish life. With faith as your compass, you navigate the fluid currents that bridge distance, crafting a harmonious relationship that anchors the eternal aspirations of Rome amid the unique constellations of your own community. As the last notes of prayer echo into the stillness of night, you find tranquility in the knowledge that regardless of distance, the shared purpose that unites distant climes beats resonantly through the bonds of faith, a powerful liturgy of connection echoed in every stone, every breath, and every heart that beats beneath the celestial canopy of the Church Universal. The dawning light seeps gently through the stained glass, casting an intricate dance of colors across the worn stone floors of the chapel. Within the sacred stillness, your thoughts take an introspective turn, contemplating a future beyond the relentless rhythm of your priestly duties. The notion of retirement, an elusive concept in the medieval world, brings with it questions of legacy and lasting imprinter, concern that lingers quietly within your daily devotions. Retirement in this era is a rare luxury, often more myth than reality for most priests who serve with unwavering dedication until their final days. For those fortunate enough to contemplate stepping back from active ministry, it marks a transition infused with both a sense of relief and introspection about the life lived and the enduring influence left behind. As you tread the well-worn paths of your parish, every footstep evokes memoria tapestry woven from years of service and devotion, each thread a connection to the souls you've touched and the communities you've nurtured. The thought of leaving these behind stirs a complex blend of emotions. The inevitability of farewell mingles with a lingering connection to the people and places that define your spiritual journey. The concepts of legacy and posterity become ever-present companions in your reflections. What will remain etched in the hearts of your parishioners, and how will faith be fostered in the generations to come? These questions, both personal and profound, guide your ruminations, inspiring an enduring commitment to cement something lasting and meaningful within the parish before the mantle is passed. You take solace in the humor of everyday life, in moments where legacies are less about grand gestures and more about simple, human connections. Picture an elderly farmer, bent with age, recalling advice you offered during a harvest long past, insisting his wheat grew taller, thanks to the whispered blessing you gave that summer's eve. Historians still argue whether the notion of priestly retirement emerged as a natural progression of ecclesiastical structure responding to human limitations, or was driven by broader clerical and societal pressures. Considerations of legacy and the enduring impact of one's ministry punctuate debatesis, an individual's influence measured during their active service, or does the true legacy unfold in the hands of those who continue on after? While retirement remains a distant prospect, each day subtly prepares you for this eventual transition. Your guidance evolves beyond immediate pastoral concerns, nurturing seeds of wisdom and strength within your community that will bear fruit far beyond your tenure. This includes mentoring younger clergy members, imparting lessons learned from years of dedication, and subtly passing the torch as they prepare to carry forth the mantle of leadership. You recognize that your legacy isn't bound by the confines of physical presence. It exists within the traditions cultivated, the compassion instilled, and the enduring faith that lives on in the hearts and minds of the people you've served. This realization grounds you, shaping your focus toward long-term support rather than swift solutions, and fostering empowered followers who will guide each other through the inevitable passages of life. As twilight drapes the village in its gentle embrace, the richness of community stories shared over evening meals amidst villagers' thankful nods becomes a testament to your enduring presence and allegory to the timeless cycle of life and faith. These moments of shared reflection remind you that while the physical footprints may eventually fade, the imprints left upon human souls are eternal. Returning to the quiet solitude of the monastery, surrounded by the flickering candlelight and the soft whisper of wind against ancient walls, you settle into contemplation on the manifold paths before you. Your legacy, a fusion of quiet resilience and vibrant faith, whispers through the echoes of the stone corridors, telling a tale of enduring presence across the seasons of human endeavor. In these reflections, you find encouragement, knowing that the imprint of service is a tapestry ever woven by actions and interactions, unraveling an infinite connection through years dedicated to growth, guidance, and the sacred truth that remains within the enduring hearts of all who follow the spiritual path. The morning air, vibrant with birdsong and the crisp scent of morning dew, fills your lungs with a vigor that seems to echo across the rolling fields surrounding the village. As a priest, deeply entrenched in the rhythms of medieval life, an often overlooked quest becomes your primary focus today: the pursuit of spiritual fulfillment amid the relentless duties and earthly challenges that define your calling. In a world often characterized by stark realities and scarce comforts, the priesthood offers a unique opportunity to transcend the mundane and engage deeply with the spiritual realms. However, the relentless cycle of obligation serving the needs of both church and community can sometimes cloud this pursuit, causing the path to genuine spiritual fulfillment to wander faintly beyond your daily reach. The pursuit of divine connection compels the faithful to look beyond the immediate horizon, seeking solace and meaning within the profound mysteries that faith holds. Your journey is both remarkably private and inherently communal, a paradox, reflecting the life of service, wherein personal enlightenment threads through public ministry. Each day, the sacred disciplines practiced under the hallowed arches of monastic life attempt to nudge you toward fulfillment, yet many paths emerge on this journey of introspection. It is a quest that invites you to delve deeper into the labyrinth of the soul, following trails marked by contemplation and ablution, prayer and reflection. Your morning prayers echo within the sacred space as they ascend heavenward, borne aloft by the hopes for clarity and understanding. The prayers carry not only the petitions of your parishioners, but also your own resonant symphony that aims to narrow the divide between the human and divine, to find meaning in service and insight amid the eternal questions of existence. Yet, humor sometimes arrives unbidden during these deeply reflective moments. Picture yourself, poised in soulful meditation, suddenly confronted by the seemingly cosmic clangor of a bell rope, unraveled unexpectedly by an overeager squirrel's antics, a reminder that divine whimsy mingles cheerfully with solemn pursuits. Historians still argue whether the path to spiritual fulfillment lies purely in service to others, or whether it requires withdrawing into solitary contemplation to seek the ineffable truths. Does your role facilitate this journey, providing the scaffolding for ascending closer to divine communion, or does it amplify the noise and distraction that can obscure such transcendence? Your quest for fulfillment extends outward, seeking resonance through the land and the lives interwoven with your own. Communion with nature, a teacher in its own right, reveals revelations of beauty and balance, evident in the cycles of growth and decay that shape both spiritual and physical landscapes. This connection invigorates devotion with each breeze through chapel boughs, and each sunrise warming the cloister walls, echoing the continuity of life in every breath shared with creation. In quiet moments spent along life's winding course, the pursuit of spiritual fulfillment is unspooled through conversations with the villagers, with their stories imbued with lived wisdom that illuminates faith's varied dimensions. It is through people whose laughter and tears carry hues of divine experience that you encounter life's greatest mysteries reflected back, providing glimpses of understanding. As dusk settles over the village, it is in this nuanced tapestry of community and solitude, of sacred duty and personal introspection, that you find the whisper of fulfillmenta, gentle assurance, whispering that the very act of service, crafted with intention and love, itself aligns with the contours of divine fulfillment. In the long shadows stretching across the monastery's courtyard, you find solace among the age-old stones that have sheltered countless wanderers on their own sacred quests. Each hour spent in prayer and service weaves another thread into this legacy, adding new tones to an unending hymn stretching toward the boundless horizon. Your path toward fulfillment winds on, marked by an unyielding commitment to embark anew each day upon the continual quest for understanding, a journey that enriches the soul with every whispered prayer, every heart uplifted, every step attuned to divine harmonies. Within this sacramental web of shared exploration, you find the seeds of an ever-evolving grace, a sanctified reality, enriching faith's tapestry with abundant love and inspiration. Finally, as the sun dips below the horizon and the sky deepens into a twilight tapestry of indigo and stars, you find yourself reflecting on a life spent in the service of something greater than oneself. The role of a medieval priest, fraught with its trials and blessings and the endurance it demands, draw to a close in this peaceful contemplation. You gaze upon the journey of the priests who came before you, and those who will follow, finding solace in the perennial persistence of faith, despite the tumultuous tides of history. The echoes of your labor reverberate through the stones upon which you walk. The corridors of the monastery, now hushed and shadowed, have borne witness to countless souls seeking refuge within its embrace. Your deeds, like theirs, have become threads in the vast, intricate tapestry of faith that spans centuries, a fabric of perseverance woven by the hands of the devout, carrying the hopes, the fears, and the enduring questions that compose the symphony of spiritual endeavor. As your footsteps echo softly along these sacred halls, you marvel at the degree to which the medieval priesthood, though occasionally arduous, exemplifies resilience. It is a testament to the boundless spirit that thrives amid trials and the indomitable hope that endures beyond the confines of time. Historians continue to ponder whether these unwavering spirits weathered the constant changes of their era by adapting seamlessly, or if their resolve stemmed from remaining steadfast and rooted amid the swirling tempests of transformation. Nevertheless, the chapters of faith recorded here in flesh and stone tell a tale of endurance propelled not solely by conviction, but also by the community, love, laughter, and an unyielding commitment to the divine. As night deepens, the monastery becomes enshrined in the serene embrace of twilight, a sanctuary for souls destined to walk this path of faith. Your thoughts drift toward the countless lives touched by your axe grand and fleeting, solemn and joyful each, leaving an enduring imprint on the lives of those around you. These moments of connection form the heartbeat of your service, reminding you that what matters most is the subtle grace you impart upon this world. Laying aside the burdens of the day, you find peace in the knowledge that the strength of your spirit has carried you steadfastly through this chapter of existence. Your contributions, etched into the narrative of life, blend seamlessly with those of many who have walked similar paths. With each shared prayer, each whispered benediction, you have perpetuated a cycle of love and faith that transcends the temporal bonds of mortality, a timeless continuum echoing through the ages. As the final vestiges of daylight withdraw, the calm of night envelops your world, and you yield to the gentle pull of rest. The promise of another sunrise and its accompanying challenges awaits you on the morrow, yet for now, you allow yourself to slip into sleep's soothing embrace, comforted by the tranquil assurance that, in this dance of eternity, even survival becomes a luxury, surpassed by the grace and tenacity of the human spirit. Sweet dreams.